We've got a really interesting conversation about AI innovation, and so I'd like to introduce Nathan Manzotti. He is the Managing Director of the AI and Data Analytics Center of Excellence at the U.S. General Services Administration, GSA. He's leading IT modernization projects across the federal agencies in areas like AI readiness, cloud migration, and data governance. He co-manages the U.S. AI Community of Practice, which is a group of over 12,000 government employees, and oversees the annual AI training series. Prior to joining GSA, he worked in leadership roles at Customs and Border Protection and also in DoD. Nathan also teaches AI as an adjunct professor and holds multiple degrees, including an MBA from the University of Maryland. So let's all welcome Nathan. All right, so this is AI innovation, challenges, policy, and progress in the government ecosystem. So you've got a lot of titles and things like that, a lot of things that are going on, Nathan. So what I wanted to do, first of all, is just ask a couple of questions about the things that you're doing today with GSA. And first of all, can you share an overview of GSA's role in promoting AI adoption across the federal agencies and why it's important for government operations?
Sure. Thanks for the introduction.
Yeah.
Nice to meet all of you. So the GSA does a lot of things, but I can speak to the things in my AOR. Through my intro, you heard the short of it. But the AI and Data Analytics Centers of Excellence at Technology Transformation Services at GSA are government-to-government consulting services. So we work with other agencies through interagency agreements, similar to private sector consulting, right? Instead of a contract, we have an interagency agreement, and those agreements always look different depending on what the work is and who the customer is. Most often, it's a tri-party agreement where we get an interagency agreement with an agency. We have a statement of work that describes what we're going to do, and then we make a decision whether to bring in a vendor or not. Most of the time, we do, and we pick the acquisition strategy based on the work and the constraints of the customer and all of that. And so we have a BPA that we like to use. We also do a lot of single source, small awards under $10 million. And we have, across the two centers, AI and data analytics, we have, I'm trying to think of the number of partners we have currently, and I can't. Around about 20 projects, I think, going on right now. And we work all across the government. So we also have the ability to work with state and local, but 99% of our work is federal.
Excellent.
Yep.
So it sounds like that you've got kind of a broad view across. You get to interact with a number of different agencies. So what are the big challenges that you've seen? What are the big opportunities also that you've seen in the government in implementing AI?
Yeah, so this is probably not going to sound like new information to anybody, but there's a couple common challenges across the board that we always see, right? Related to heavy bureaucratic processes that are difficult to introduce new solutions in environments. Yeah, exactly. So there's that, and then typical government procurement related stuff like the color of money, finding funding, right? The budgets this year are tough. So that kind of stuff. Culture is a big challenge that's kind of persistent in the AI space, at least, and data modernization as well, right? Push and change in government agencies is not an easy thing to do. The thing that we have on our side in the Centers of Excellence is that we usually come in with a lot of top support. So our customers are the C-suite for either a component or at the enterprise level, And so we're coming in to support a change that the leadership already supports. We're not usually pushing from the mid-level or low, right? So that helps on our side, but we have a practice. So to give a little more details about the Centers of Excellence. So I run the AI and the Data Analytics Center, but there's 6 different centers. Okay. That's why cloud migration is on there for me too, because we work across the centers. I ran a large cloud migration project at the NIH. We have what we call practice areas, and one of them is innovation adoption. And whenever the budget and the capacity is there, I always like to pair innovation adoption with, the technical team that's working, if it's a big change. Because you find out, like, the earlier we get those folks in there to kind of survey the environment and understand the culture, usually the more successful the project will be. Because everything works off relationships and people, right? So, like, we're going in there, we come up with a solution that is going to solve a particular problem, a strategy to implement it, right? But then we have to basically sell that idea as outsiders to all these people in an agency. And the first question that comes up is like, who are you? Why are you here? Why would I do this? What do I stand to gain? I'm a permanent federal employee that's not going to get anything from this. I'm used to doing things the way that I do.
Right.
And those innovation adoption guys excel at that. They understand the psychology of organizational change and all of that. And so that's a big piece of it.
That's a big thing that I think a lot of the companies here can really relate to is, right, cultural change management is very difficult, even in the private sector. I can only imagine for government. And you're right in the nexus of that across a lot of these agencies. What are the things what initiatives have you put into place, or are you helping other agencies to fill the gap in terms of talent, the talent gap for AI initiatives?
So talent gap, that's a big one, right? There's the AI Tech Talent Task Force that is a White House initiative, and Technology Transformation Services is a part of that. So I'm not directly involved with that task force, but my organization has like the U.S. Digital Corps. We brought in AI people through that. The Presidential Innovation Fellows Program is also part of TTS, and they just onboarded their AI cohort. So there's those things. In the AI Center of Excellence, agencies hire us to find people like you, industry partners that can meet the needs that they have. And, we also have expertise on our own team. So that's some things that we're doing. And then with talent, upskilling is a huge piece of it too. And I'm actually an advocate for that because I think 5-10 years ago, the AI situation was a lot different, right? You needed computer scientists, advanced computer science skill sets, machine learning people. Now, a lot of the work is centered around integration, right? Like for generative AI systems and stuff. And so I think there's an opportunity rather than just reaching out to industry and try to convince people to come in, and the government cannot compete on salary, right? Nowhere close.
Right.
I'm kind of an advocate for the message of training the existing IT resources that agencies have on the realities of production implementations of AI systems, quality control.
Because I think one big thing is just demystifying the technology and demystifying a lot of these concepts behind AI, because if you understand it and you have better training programs or the teams have upskilled, then you may be more likely to adopt these things, especially as long as there's proper risk controls in place.
Yeah, like for instance, the cloud COE. I work with them a lot. Some of those guys have asked me like, hey, I want to get in the AI field too. Like, what should I do? Should I take this data science course and this and that? I always tell them no. You're not going to become a data scientist in a couple months. I'm not, like, everyone should have a basic understanding of data science, the way machine learning models work, stuff like that, what's under the hood. But really, there's a bigger need for the guys like that have 20 years of experience as infrastructure engineers to understand, the system of systems around the model and the security and so on and so forth. And so, there's a different track to go down for them. I don't think everyone needs to become a data scientist. It's a whole
Probably
ecosystem.
not.
Yeah.
But you did mention what is like infrastructure, and that is really super important, especially around security. So what are the things that you've seen that are essential technology components that federal agencies need to put into place to effectively implement AI? What guidelines or recommendations would you give?
The main recommendation that I give is forget about AI and focus on the data foundation at the agency, which, the Evidence Act 2018 put a lot of things in motion. The CDOs were named, right? All agencies were mandated to create data inventories and create data governance boards and so on. And a lot of that work is still ongoing, right? Like the core of work on the data side, right, in the data analytics COE is related to like modernizing the centralized approach to manage and manipulate, use data in the agencies. I'd always say like that work should not stop, because when it comes to AI, whether you're talking about like predictive AI and having models that complete different functions with like traditional machine learning, or like with generative AI, fine-tuning small models, or using like in-context learning with the RAG system and all of that, that's still, all of those things require getting the data in a format that it can be used effectively and tested, right?
So it's not a mystery, right? It's these core things that you have to do that you're already starting on, and a lot of these government agencies are already starting on, understanding what types of data, how they're being used, and where. It's just sometimes this may be in an AI context.
Yeah,
right?
and you know, for AI can mean a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about what are you trying to do, what data is available, what capabilities exist. You know, I also like that there's so much attention on AI now, because for us in the data modernization world, I see it as like, okay, everybody wants to do AI. We can use this to get some resources to put on the bigger issues that, you know. So like if you could create small win by having a narrow focused AI system, and it requires getting the data in a certain format, and having quality control and monitoring and so on, then, all right, this is still working.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Then, you know, you could take the wins from that and apply it on a wider scale, right?
It's those foundations, right? You have to make sure that you're applying those.
Yeah.
Now, understanding that there are a lot of the foundational elements that are in place, the recent executive order on AI regulation and development, how do you feel like that has affected? Has that affected your approach to or GSA's approach to these strategies, or how you're engaging with other agencies, or has that just enhanced your mission?
So definitely, so the AI Tech Talent Task Force, that's something related to the executive order. Another one, so I'll talk about the community of practice now. So I am a co-manager. There's a guy named Ryan Dolan's the other co-manager for this AI community of practice that we run. And it's actually over 15,000 members now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so the AI COP exists to be a place where government employees, and that means any government worker, by the way, it's not just federal, it's federal, state, and local, and it extends to contractors as well, and tribal governments as well. SLTT is what it is. Federal, state, local, and tribal. And contractors can join too, and exists to share best practices and so on. And it relates to the EO because OMB 2410, which is the guidance that OMB put out for agencies implementing the executive order. Section 4 is all about sharing and leveraging each other's work, and that's really they call us out in the footnotes of that as well. So we have a good relationship with OMB, and we're using that program to do that, to maximize sharing of knowledge and information across agencies. And we've been pretty fortunate because we have the ability through that program to reach in to a bunch of different agencies and get people to come and present about really interesting work that's going on across the government.
And you mentioned when we were prepping for this, you mentioned about a broad training that was going on across the federal government as well as for government contractors. How was that? Can you share some successes or some
Sure.
outputs from that?
Yeah, so we did, this year's the third year of the training series, and it came about after the AI Training Act was passed, I think in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2020 was the AI Training Act, and then we got support for this program. The first 2 years, we brought in Stanford HAI, which is Human Artificial Intelligence. Yeah, so they're a really awesome group of, academics that are working at the top of the field, and we've been privileged to have them come and teach our training series the last 2 years. And this year, with all the increased attention, right, the executive order driving that, and stuff, we decided to expand the series to 3 different tracks instead of just one. So in the past 2 years, we had like 6 sessions. It was Stanford High that did it, synchronous hour-long sessions, I think 6 to 7 sessions. This year we did 21.
Wow.
And we set up a relationship with George Washington Law School because they have a procurement law division that's specifically tailored to federal law. And we didn't find, there's a lot of great law schools out there, but I haven't found any that are that specified on the federal procurement world. So they were an awesome partner to come in. Jessica Tilleman and Aram Gavor, and I'm probably leaving at least one out, but those were 2 people that taught that track. And then Princeton Center for International, it's CITP. I don't know exactly what that stands for.
It's okay.
I don't remember, but they were another great partner too. So they taught the leadership and policy track. George Washington taught the acquisition track, and then Stanford did the technical one again. And we've gotten really good responses to that training. We just concluded it on the 29th. And yeah, over 92% satisfaction rate. We had over 14,000 unique attendance or registrations for the series, 50,000 training hours when you take the people and multiply it by how many sessions they were in. So yeah, it's been a great program to run.
Talk about upskilling, right? And especially with such a interesting topic area that in government you don't necessarily get to see a lot of those things. So I'm glad to see that that's pretty pervasive.
Yeah, and so that was the synchronous portion, right? But what we're doing, so last year we started taking the course content and turning it into like learning modules so that federal agencies can load it into their learning management systems, and then employees can continue to take the training in perpetuity for continuous learning points, right? That's now we just concluded the series on the 29th, and we're doing that with this year's training. There's a lot of attention on building training materials for federal employees.
Yeah, and reuse, right? So not
Yeah.
everything has to be in person.
And like OPM has their own, which is like a different type of training. It's smaller, kind of more digestible thing. We have this academic focused training, and then we work at the interagency level a lot. Like I mentioned, OMB in the White House. CIO Council has this innovation committee that we're working with too to figure out how to build a better solution for like a platform to share the information, resources. And the DoD, their CDAO office, we have a relationship with them as well. And so I think tomorrow they're going live with a pilot for this platform that we're collaborating with them on. They're calling it the Uncynic platform. You can look it up online. It's a TradeWinds program that's putting that out. But we're also going to do a separate launch on the same thing for the GSA community of practice in the next month or so. We're working out the dates.
That's very awesome.
Yeah.
So now let's change it up a little bit, because we've got a lot of industry partners here. We've got a lot of government contractors here. So how is the GSA, and particularly your division, how are you collaborating with industry partners to develop and deploy AI solutions?
So we work with industry a lot. I mentioned the kind of IAA structure that we use with our consulting services. And I mean, we couldn't do that work without industry. And so we're always looking for partners, specifically in the small business category, because most of our projects start out small and then grow. And so a lot of times we're doing work where, excuse me, agency comes to us, they have like a certain amount of money at the end of the year, they want to do something, or get prototypes built and get the ball rolling to justify larger investment down the road. And so there's time constraints and stuff, and the easiest way for us to go is usually with small business for that. Like I said, under $10 million type of thing. And so we have the ability to, we're always looking for those partners that can come in and, make a project successful. And then a lot of times that leads to follow-on work with us, and then even down the road, direct contracts with our federal partners.
And you mentioned there was a BPA, a blanket purchase agreement, that helps those contractors get in the door, right?
So we use the total BPA a lot. That's the one that's kind of we have easiest access to. But we also do RFIs, depending on like how our pipeline changes. We'll put out an RFI, not for specific awards, but to get a short list of companies that can provide certain capabilities so that when we have those needs, we can find them quicker. So like we just completed, so I'm saying completed, but I think the RFI is no longer live anymore for the data analytics side, but my team is like analyzing it to get that short list for us. There's a lot of like post RFI stuff that we do to try to really get the short list of good companies. We completed that one recently. It went out, I say recently, but I think that it actually went out in June.
Okay.
And we're going to be doing one related to AI, but I don't have the exact date for that. The person on my team is like running that exercise, and they're figuring out the best way to go forward because AI is a little bit more complex, right? We have a lot of work in data space, so it's, we know what the big buckets of capabilities we need. In the AI space, we're thinking like, what's the best way to put this RFI out? Because we want to have the ability to respond to any demand that comes our way, right? But it's just a wide variety of different things that AI can mean.
And it changes very quickly too,
Exactly.
right?
So we're probably going to end up doing multiple RFIs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so this actually plays in the next question is, how can federal contractors better prepare to deliver AI-based solutions and to respond to these types of RFIs? No secrets, obviously, but
well, one thing that you can do, like I mentioned, if you have federal customers already and you have .gov emails, you can join the AI COP, and then you'll hear directly from agencies about what they're working on, and, from us as well, and then look out for the RFIs.
So one thing that I think is really interesting, especially, go ahead.
And actually, I want to say one more thing on that too. I'm sure that a lot of you are reading the stuff that comes out from the White House, right? Like, but I just want to emphasize that it's important to do that. Like, read the whole thing. Don't skim it or read an article about it, because agencies determine what they do a lot of times by what's in there. So, like, you can. You get the 60-page document or something like that, and you start reading it, and you can start to discern, like, okay, the big guys are going to take these. My company's well fit. I think, like, that's a good strategy to go, to try to find that niche need that you can adapt your product a little bit, you know what I mean, and create that differentiator to meet those specific needs that all the agencies are going to have, because it's a mandate from OMB now, so throwing that out there.
And there's a lot of opportunities to, like you said, if it's a quick turn opportunity, maybe industry has a solution that you don't want to develop in-house, you want to start with something from industry.
Yep.
One thing that I wanted to bring up is, and we talked a little bit about this before, but can you share a specific success story where AI has improved a federal agency's operations or services? Because I know you've seen a broad swath of different agencies, but...
Oh, sorry. I didn't silence my phone.
All good.
Okay. So yes, the reason why I'm hesitant is because, like, with my customer agencies, we're supposed to get approval before we talk about them.
Maybe the use case or something that's generic.
Sure. So I'll give a narrow AI use case, which we completed a prototype for, I think 2 years ago, with the USDA. So the USDA came to us about developing a solution to, like, a computer vision solution to automatically grade different types of meat, and so my team went out, met with the meat graders, looked at the manual process that they have, trained a small image recognition model to classify the images, and it was pretty successful prototype. Whether they put it in production or not, I don't know. We left after the prototype was completed, give them a plan to put it in production. So that's one. And then, so in progress work that we have right now with the Department of State Consular Affairs Office, we're helping them develop their customer experience office. And that work, I want to say it's the largest project in my portfolio right now. We have kind of two sides to the work. There's a customer experience COE that's doing kind of the qualitative side, and then we have the data analytics and the AI COP doing all the dashboarding and requirements with that, and we're using AI to analyze free text for the customer surveys that are coming in. So that's pretty interesting, a lot of promise to that. You might have heard like the online passport process that they just launched. That's the same office.
Wow.
So, yeah, those are two
Very
examples.
interesting.
But we have other projects in the portfolio going on too.
We've only got one more minute left, but I wanted to ask you a final question because I think this is very important. So what is your vision for the future of AI in federal government? And how can stakeholders across the industry really help to work together to realize the vision?
So my vision individually is I want to leverage the success of the community of practice that we've had. So we've grown from 1,800 people to over 15,000 in like 14, 15 months.
Wow.
Right? So that just is a signal of the demand for knowledge sharing and learning. So I'm hopeful that the work that we're doing with the DoD CDAO office and with the CIO Council is going to produce a platform where like it's not just lessons learned and webinars and things like that, but then will turn into shared solutions. So I think that there's a need for, like on the generative AI side, like model repositories that are government approved, something like Olama or Hugging Face, but where there's like models that were tested and they're approved for use, and then you can put I call it innovation from the bottom up, right? Put the innovation in the hands of the technicians, so they can just pull down something, they can prepare a data set, fine-tune a model on it, test it. If there's success, have a route to elevate that to get leadership approval and funding and so on. And so we're trying to take the COP in that direction where it's more action-oriented. And that's what I'm hopeful about.
Excellent.
But we'll see what happens. There's a lot of change going on. And yeah, the budgetary environment is difficult. So.
Yeah, and like you said, there's a huge amount of cultural change and other things like that, but it sounds like that you're right in the middle of a lot of really interesting innovation inside of the government. So with that, we're at the end of our session. One thing I did want to remind everyone, well, first of all, thank you, Nathan, for sharing everything.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And then we have one more session left here in the same room. We will be, and all the sessions will be recorded and they'll be shared out at the end of the month to all the participants. We're going to have a quick 10-minute break, but we've got a really interesting session here afterwards about CMMC Simplified, navigating compliance with confidence. And then Nathan will be here around here for a few minutes to answer any questions that you have. But thank you very much for your participation.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Nathan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.